Germans at Meat by Katherine Mansfield. Narrated by Harry Dobby. Bread soup was placed upon the table. "Ah," said the Her-Rat, leaning upon the table as he peered into the tureen. "This is what I need. My magen has not been in order for several days. Bread soup and just the right consistency. I'm a good cook myself." He turned to me. "How interesting," I said, attempting to infuse just the right amount of enthusiasm into my voice.
"Ah, yes. When one is not married, it is necessary. As for me, I have had all I wanted from women without marriage."
He tucked his napkin into his collar and blew upon his soup as he spoke.
"Now at 9 o'clock, I make myself an English breakfast, but not much. 4 slices of bread, 2 eggs, 2 slices of cold ham, 1 plate of soup, 2 cups of tea. That is nothing to you."
He asserted the fact so vehemently that I had not the courage to refute it. All eyes were suddenly turned upon me. I felt I was bearing the burden of the nation's preposterous breakfast, I who drank a cup of coffee while buttoning my blouse in the morning.
"Nothing at all," cried Herr Hoffmann from Berlin. "Ach, when I was in England in the morning, I used to eat."
He turned up his eyes and his moustache, wiping the soup drippings from his coat and waistcoat.
"Do they really eat so much?"
asked Fräulein Stiegelauer.
"Soup and baker's bread and pig's flesh and tea and coffee and stewed fruit and honey and eggs and cold fish and kidneys and hot fish and liver. All the ladies eat too, especially the ladies." "Certainly. I myself have noticed it when I was living in a hotel in Leicester Square," cried the Her-Rat. "It was a good hotel, but they could not make tea now."
"Ah, that's one thing I can do," said I, laughing brightly. "I can make a very good tea. The great secret is to warm the teapot."
"Warm the teapot?"
interrupted the Her-Rat, pushing away his soup plate.
"What do you warm the teapot for? Ha! Ha! That's very good. One does not eat the teapot, I suppose."
He fixed his cold blue eyes upon me with an expression which suggested 1,000 premeditated invasions.
"So that is the great secret of your English tea. All you do is warm the teapot."
I wanted to say that was only the preliminary canter, but could not translate it, and so was silent. The servant brought in veal with sauerkraut and potatoes. "I eat sauerkraut with great pleasure," said the traveller from North Germany. "But now I have eaten so much of it that I cannot retain it. I am immediately forced to—" "Beautiful day," I cried, turning to Fräulein Stiegelauer. "Did you get up early?"
"At 5 o'clock, I walked for 10 minutes in the wet grass. Again in bed. At 5:30, I fell asleep and woke at 7, when I made an overbody washing. Again in bed. At 8 o'clock, I had a cold water poultice, and at 8:30 I drank a cup of mint tea. At 9 I drank some malt coffee, and began my cure. Pass me the sauerkraut, please. Do you not eat it?"
"No, thank you. I still find it a little strong." "It is true?" asked the widow, picking her teeth with a hairpin as she spoke. "That you are a vegetarian?" "Why, yes, I have not eaten meat for 3 years." "Impossible. Have you any family?" "No." "There now, you see. That's what you're coming to. Who ever heard of having children upon vegetables? It is not possible. But you never have large families in England now. I suppose you are too busy with your suffragetting. Now, I have had 9 children, and they are all alive, thank God. Fine, healthy babies. Though after the first one was born, I had to—" "How wonderful!" I cried. "Wonderful," said the widow contemptuously, replacing the hairpin in the knob which was balanced on the top of her head. "Not at all. A friend of mine had 4 at the same time. Her husband was so pleased he gave a supper party and had them placed on the table. Of course she was very proud." "Germany," boomed the traveller, biting round a potato which he had speared with his knife, "is the home of the family." Followed an appreciative silence. The dishes were changed for beef, red currants and spinach. They wiped their forks upon black bread and started again. "How long are you remaining here?" asked the Herr Rat. "I do not know exactly. I must be back in London in September." "Of course you will visit München?" "I am afraid I shall not have time. You see, it is important not to break into my cure." "But you must go to München. You have not seen Germany if you have not been to München. All the exhibitions, all the art and soul life of Germany are in München. There is the Wagner Festival in August, and Mozart, and a Japanese collection of pictures. And there is the beer. You do not know what good beer is until you have been to München. Why, I see fine ladies every afternoon, but fine ladies, I tell you, drinking glasses so high." He measured a good washstand pitcher in height, and I smiled. "If I drink a great deal of München beer, I sweat so," said Herr Hoffmann. "When I am here, in the fields or before my baths, I sweat, but I enjoy it. In the town it is not at all the same thing." Prompted by the thought, he wiped his face and neck with his dinner napkin and carefully cleaned his ears. A glass dish of stewed apricots was placed upon the table. "Ah, fruit," said Fraulein Stieglauer. "It is so necessary to health. The doctor told me this morning that the more fruit I could eat, the better." She very obviously followed the advice. Said the traveller, "I suppose you were frightened of an invasion too, eh? Oh, that's good. I've been reading about your English play in a newspaper. Did you see it?" "Yes." I sat upright. "I assure you we are not afraid." "Well, then you ought to be," said the Herr Rat. "You've got no army at all, a few little boys with their veins full of nicotine poisoning." "Don't be afraid," Herr Hoffmann said. "We don't want England. If we did, we would have had her long ago. We really do not want you." He waved his spoon airily, looking across at me as though I were a little child whom he would keep or dismiss as he pleased. "We certainly do not want Germany," I said. "This morning I took a half bath. Then this afternoon I must take a knee bath and an arm bath," volunteered the Herr Rat. "Then I do my exercises for an hour, and my work is over. A glass of wine, a couple of rolls with some sardines." We were handed cherry cake with whipped cream. "What is your husband's favourite meat?" asked the widow. "I really do not know," I answered. "You really do not know? How long have you been married?" 3 years. "But you cannot be in earnest. You would not have kept house as his wife for a week without knowing that fact." "I really never asked him. He is not at all particular about his food." A pause. They all looked at me, shaking their heads, their mouths full of cherry stones. "No wonder there is a repetition in England of that dreadful state of things in Paris," said the widow, folding her dinner napkin. "How can a woman expect to keep her husband if she does not know his favourite food after 3 years? Mahlzeit! Mahlzeit!" I closed the door after me.